Vladimir Putin blames the aggressive actions of NATO countries for Moscow testing a new missile in a strike on Ukraine. Germany's defense minister says he won't run for chancellor in February snap elections and supports Olaf Scholz's re-election bid. Matt Gaetz withdraws as Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General amid continued scrutiny over a federal sex trafficking investigation. The Reykjanes Peninsula volcano erupts for the 7th time in a year, but experts say volcanic activity has reached its peak. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has blamed the aggressive actions of NATO countries for Moscow testing a new intermediate-range missile in a strike on Ukraine. Putin said Russia was conducting combat tests of the new Oreshnik missile system after Ukrainian strikes earlier this week using US and British weaponry.
Объекты для поражения в ходе дальнейших испытаний наших новейших ракетных комплексов будут определяться нами, исходя из угроз безопасности Российской Федерации. Мы считаем себя вправе применять наше оружие против военных объектов тех стран, которые позволяют применять свое оружие против наших объектов.
In his nightly video address, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky slammed Russia's use of the Oreshnik, saying Putin was using Ukraine as a training ground.
Сьогодні ж наш божевільний сусід вкотре показав, який він насправді, як він зневажає і гідність, і свободу, і взагалі життя людей. І як він боїться. Боїться настільки, що застосовує вже нові ракети. І шукає по світу, де б ще знайти зброю. То в Ірані, то в Північній Кореї.
Earlier this week, US President Joe Biden gave Ukraine authorization to use US-supplied longer-range missiles to strike military targets deeper inside Russia. According to the Kremlin, Ukraine fired several ATACMS into Russia on Tuesday. And a day after that, Ukraine used up to 12 British French-made Storm Shadow missiles for strikes into Russia's Kursk region. US officials have said the change in the Biden administration policy was a response to Russia using thousands of troops from North Korea to support Moscow's forces in the conflict.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has gifted North Korea with over 70 species of zoo animals in what the Kremlin says is a sign of support, kindness and care. The animals were transported to Pyongyang Central Zoo on Wednesday and include a lion and 2 brown bears. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un recently sent some 10,000 troops to Russia's border with Ukraine, further strengthening ties between the two countries.
Northern and central Gaza saw a wave of massive Israeli attacks on Wednesday night, continuing through Thursday morning. At least 66 people were killed and over 100 injured in Beit Lahia in the north, and another 22 were killed in a northern neighborhood of Gaza City. Northern Gaza has been under siege by the Israeli military since early October, with the UN warning on Tuesday that no aid has been able to enter for 40 days. According to Gaza's health ministry, the total death toll since October last year has now exceeded 44,000. At the same time, the Israeli military said it killed 3 militants in the West Bank city of Jenin during a raid on Tuesday. Mourners were seen on the streets on Thursday as they held a funeral. Israeli forces also attacked cities across Lebanon, including Tyre and the country's capital, Beirut. Meanwhile, an Israeli man was killed by shrapnel following a rocket strike from Lebanon into northern Israel.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez on Thursday welcomed Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa to Madrid in what was their first intergovernmental meeting. It comes 6 months after Spain recognized the Palestinian state.
La visita del primer ministro palestino a España ha servido para estrechar los lazos entre ambos países. En la mañana de este jueves se han firmado diversos acuerdos de colaboración en distintas materias. Según expertos consultados por Euronews, la visita del primer ministro palestino se enmarca dentro de la normalidad institucional y diplomática después del reconocimiento del Estado palestino por parte del gobierno de Pedro Sánchez.
Se encuentra dentro de la lógica, ¿no?, de la agenda internacional del presidente del gobierno. Pues dada la situación geopolítica internacional, es un encuentro que tiene mucha relevancia, ya no solo para Palestina, sino lógicamente para España y para el posicionamiento de nuestro país, ¿no? En las decisiones en política internacional hay que tener mucha cabeza, hay que tener mucha precaución y ser prudente, ¿no? Y sobre todo estar al lado de las personas y de los países que defienden las democracias y que defienden el Estado de Derecho.
Spain's recognition of the Palestinian state has drawn strong criticism from the Israeli government.
Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has said he won't run for Chancellor in February snap elections. In a video posted to SDP social media channels, Pistorius said he's not available and would instead support Olaf Scholz's re-election bid. Pistorius, currently polling as Germany's most popular politician, said his decision not to run against Scholz was sovereign and entirely personal. Scholz called a snap election after the collapse of the coalition in early November. That came after Scholz fired the then finance minister Christian Lindner. Scholz told the press at the time that Lindner had broken his trust too many times. As per German election rules, the Bundestag will hold a government confidence vote on December the 16th before voters head to the polls on February the 23rd. The traffic light coalition has governed Germany since 2021, and its collapse meant Scholz's government no longer had a majority in parliament. The SDP confirmed on Thursday that they would nominate Scholz as their lead candidate for Chancellor next week. But according to current opinion polls, support for the Social Democratic Party is low. A tally published on Thursday by political research group Infratest DMAP shows the CDU-CSU polling at 33%, with the SPD trailing behind at 14%, level with the Greens.
One of the EU's main fears with the re-election of Donald Trump in the United States is a return to a moment of trade instability. Protectionism or increased tariffs on European products are among the bloc's fears. The EU says it is willing to work with Washington. At Thursday's meeting of trade ministers in Brussels, the bloc sought to show unity.
There was an overall agreement among ministers that we must strive to work proactively with a new US administration on transatlantic trade and investment relations.
The United States is one of the EU's largest trading partners. In 2021, transatlantic trade reached an all-time high of 1.2 trillion euros.
Nobody wants a trade war. We are having a positive attitude towards the United States. We both benefit from trade, and the transatlantic relationship is very important for the EU and also for the US.
During the campaign, Trump promised to impose 10% tariffs on EU exports and threatened that the bloc would have to pay a big price if it did not buy US goods.
Heavy snowfall caused by an unexpected onset of winter has led to traffic complications across Europe. In parts of Germany and France, the snow pushed drivers and public transport to their limits in some places. The German city of Solingen was particularly affected. Traffic is having difficulty navigating through the thick snow, as the winter road clearance service is not regularly active yet at night. Air traffic at the Cologne-Bonn airport was also disrupted as runways needed to be cleared. Passengers were told to expect more disruptions in the coming days if the wintry conditions persist.
Former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz has withdrawn as President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General. It comes amid continued scrutiny over a federal sex trafficking investigation that cast doubt on his ability to be America's chief law enforcement officer. In a statement, Gates said his confirmation was becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. The announcement comes days after an attorney for two women said that his clients told House Ethics Committee investigators that Gates paid them for sex on multiple occasions. One of the women testified she saw Gates having sex with a 17-year-old at a party in Florida in 2017. The attorney said his client testified she didn't think Gates knew the girl was underage and stopped the relationship when he found out. Gates has denied any wrongdoing and said that the investigation into sex trafficking allegations had ended with no federal charges against him. In a social media post, Donald Trump said, "Matt has a wonderful future and I look forward to watching all the great things he will do." Trump has nominated former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi as his replacement pick.
Have you talked to people from Arctic?
A volcano on the southwestern Reykjanes Peninsula erupted again late on Wednesday night, the seventh such eruption in a year. Officials say the latest eruption is considerably smaller than the previous one in August and indicates that volcanic activity in the area has reached its peak. The repeated volcanic eruptions close to the town of Grindavik have damaged infrastructure and property and forced many residents to evacuate. Authorities say the town isn't threatened further by this latest eruption, but it remains mostly deserted following evacuation orders issued in December last year. Iceland's main international airport, Keflavik, said in a statement on its website that flights were unaffected and no critical infrastructure was at risk. But the Blue Lagoon geothermal spa, one of Iceland's most popular tourist destinations, had shut down and evacuated its guests. Iceland lies on the fault line between the Eurasian and North American tectonic plates and is a hotspot for seismic activity. The volcano on the Reykjanes Peninsula had been dormant for around 800 years before the geological system sprang back into life in 2021. Eruptions in the area have since been more and more frequent, with the latest volcanic activity being the 6th this year alone.